Hey guys, welcome to the Art of Headshot Retouching. I'm Amy E Osborne, and I like to play with the hair fan when no one's around. I'm a high-end headshot photographer and retoucher, an associate photographer of Peter Hurley at peterhurley.com, and head honcho at Ozzy Headshots, ozzyheadshots.com. Before we get started, I just want to say again, welcome everybody, and a special warm welcome back to my subscribers. I love you guys. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I hope you get something out of this video. Okay, you guys, we're zooming. I don't know why we're zooming. Oh, now we're zooming out. This picture here is my current profile pic on Facebook and I think Insta, and people seem to like it, so I was thinking, darn, I wish I had recorded my screen when I retouched it. Because it would have been good. I hadn't done a retouching video in a little while. So, but rather than going back into the raw file and retouching it again, I just decided that it doesn't really matter what shot I retouch. I'm just going to do a video for you guys. So I grabbed this silly shot, which is sort of like the candid of self-portraits, kind of like messing with my hair, and didn't expect the camera to take a picture. So I'm just going to retouch this one. I'm using Affinity Photo, which is very similar to Adobe Photoshop, but you can use whatever you like. In this case, I didn't make any changes to the raw file. I'm just developing it, just as is. And I'm going to save that, but I'm not going to bore you with the steps of that. Just saving the file. And then I like to duplicate my background layer, Command J in my case. And I'm going to begin by using my patch tool on the skin. I'll start with this redness here on my nose, caused by a cardboard box. I cut myself like a paper cut with a cardboard box. If you are not sure of how to wield your patch tool or other basic tools, I recommend you guys also check out some beginner tutorials. I will make it a point to find some and post a link in the notes below for you guys. Essentially, I inspect the image for any major distractions, and when I'm satisfied that I've dealt with all of them, I move on to frequency separation. Frequency separation is your friend. It allows you to split your image into two parts. The high frequency layer holds all the details, the texture, and the low frequency layer, which looks all blurry, it holds the color and the value and the shapes. You can use your stamp / clone. You can use your blemish removal tool. You can use whatever you want. You can do this a lot of different ways. I just happen to really love the control that I have with the patch tool, so I like to go around and clean up areas on the low frequency layer that just kind of stand out. So a dark spot in the middle of otherwise lighter skin, stuff like that. Sometimes I like to leave little things that look maybe like imperfections, like a renegade eyebrow hair, or like kind of a questionable, like, is that a freckle or not? Sometimes I just leave stuff. Sometimes you go a little bit overboard and you have to rein yourself in. Like, I was kind of adjusting this little area on my nose, kind of like helping out my contouring job that I did with my makeup, and I accidentally like assassinated my freckle. So I went back with my eraser tool and just erased those upper layers just over that freckle so I could save the freckle, because I kind of like this freckle. So the changes I've just made to the skin are typically what I would do for a standard headshot retouching job. Sometimes I like to do more extended services, and I'll show you one next. This looks pretty wild and crazy at first, but just trust me, it will all be scaled way back. First, I'm going to grab this clone / stamp. Brace yourselves. I know, it's kind of crazy looking. I'm narrowing the shadow width on either side of the nose. This can be done with makeup. I also like to just kind of go around smoothing a little bit, and I like to fill in the brows, which also could have been done with makeup, but I was trying to go as subtle as I could with makeup, and I'm also going to go pretty subtle with this effect here once it's scaled back. Something I really like to do is add highlight to the lower lip between the low and high frequency layers. This creates a little sandwich, and I'm going to create a highlight here that I like. I'm going overboard at first, erasing away anything that's outside the shape that I want, and this will add the illusion of a more convex, more plump, more rounded lip shape, and a little increased shine. Once I am quite pleased with my wild and crazy edits, it's time to scale them way back. What I did next here is I combined my edit layers onto one normal layer, and then I chose an average blend mode so that the changes would be much more subtle. The darker eyebrows of the edited layer are now not as dark. The lighter value on either side of the nose is now not as light, and all those edits are much more subtle, averaging out with the pixels, the values, the colors below. And to make it even more subtle, because I love subtle, I reduce the layer opacity until I feel like I've found the sweet spot. Typically what I like to do if I have a layer that is a blend mode other than normal, and or if I have an opacity that is other than 100, I typically like to drop that down, merge that down onto a duplicate of the normal layer below. You see me clicking on and off edit layers quite often throughout the process, and that's just because I want to keep the changes as subtle and as natural as possible and never stray too far from the baseline. At this point in the retouching process, I realize with sort of shock and horror, my teeth do not look so presentable. Luckily, people don't look at me this close up. So I very quickly grabbed my lasso / freehand selection tool and a limited feather, and I outlined my teeth and kind of refined my selection. You can refine your selection in other ways, but this is just how I'm doing it. You can select the teeth in other ways as well. And I did a new adjustment layer selective color, pulled down my yellows. I did a vibrance adjustment layer and pulled down my vibrance a bit. And then I did a curves adjustment and pulled up my curves just a little bit. I just kind of finessed it the way I liked it. And this is pretty typical of what I would do for a standard retouching job for teeth. The next thing I decide to do is more of an extended service. I would not do this for everybody, but this is my mug and I rarely show my teeth, and when I do, I will typically sort of just neaten the edge of these, well, they're called front teeth, but they're also called maxillary central incisors, and so I like to call them by their real name. Did you guys know that most mammals have front teeth, but armadillos don't? Armadillos. Hang on a second. Hey Siri, do armadillos have maxillary central incisors?
Okay, I found this on the web. For do armadillos have maxillary central incisors?
I just wish you would know that off the top of your head. And then at the end, I go back and erase where I think it went overboard and kind of just clean it up. Once I'm satisfied with my changes, and I am. Oh, you have such nice teeth. Oh, thank you. That's when I combine / merge my like edit layers into a single normal layer. Are you guys picking up what I'm putting down? I'm trying to go swiftly through my process, covering standard and extended retouching services for headshots. And I'm trying to go slowly enough to not completely lose those of you who are my retouching students and beginners. But for you guys, I am putting some links down below in the show notes so that you can go more into depth with some of these topics that I've just sped through. So I'm really liking these changes. And at this point, I realized something. I've gone and lost my freckle again. Did you guys know that it was gone and you just couldn't tell me? That must have been really, really hard for you. There. Next, I want to talk about another extended service, and I'm just going to go ahead and add a new pixel layer and grab a brush and sample a color and just go crazy with poke your eye out eyebrows. Really, really dark, crazy looking shapes. And I'm going to scale it way, way, way back. And basically all I've done is just create a subtle deepening of the shadow there. I don't know why, but I'm fond of this little brow hair that's sticking out. Maybe because it's like a little rebel without a cause. Next, I want to talk about the eyes, and specifically, I'd like to start with just removing a little bit of redness. So, I create a selection around the area that I want to affect, and then I go and do a selective color adjustment and bring my reds down. You guys might see me from time to time blurring an adjustment layer and wonder what I'm doing. I think I may have done it once or twice already and just sort of slipped it in and not mentioned it, but I'd like to talk about it just briefly. I like to blur the perimeter, the edges of my adjustment layers sometimes because I want to soften the transition between the affected area and the non-affected area. I can go into this crazy other blend mode, contrast negate, and you can see the area much, much better. When you've got no blur, you just have a really sharply defined edge to the affected area, and when you blur it, the edge is really soft and faded. It's not the eye that I'm blurring, the pixel layer, it is the adjustment layer only. So just be careful that you don't accidentally tap on the pixel layer when you're in the blur dialog box. So I'm feeling like boosting the curves for the eyes as well. And what I'm going to do here is just really exaggerate the curves, like make them look crazy so that you can see what I'm doing now with the blurring of this adjustment layer. So you see that transition just kind of smoothing way out, blurring out, so that that transition is really, really easy. Bringing up your curves can give the illusion that your eyes are more open than they really are, and I actually don't like that. So I do often go in and remove some of the adjustment layer area at the lash lines, top and bottom. You can throw another quick blur on there. Very, very subtle, and I love it. Some people might wonder if it was worth it, and I say it's worth it because I'm the artist and I like it. Before, after, before, and after. So far, I'm really happy with it. You know, sometimes artists go a little crazy, like Van Gogh with that whole ear situation, and me with this whole nose thing. So basically, I just kind of cut off my nose and deselected and pasted down and changed the blend mode of those layers to average. And the reason is just, I just wanted to make those changes more subtle, scale them back. From time to time across the retouching process, and I would say pretty frequently, I like to get up and move around, stretch my legs, fix myself a cup of tea, get some fresh air, and when I get back to my desk, I have fresh eyes and can make sure that I haven't gone overboard on any of my changes. The next step is also an extended service, and it's not for everybody, but I like it. I have a very long, oval-shaped face, and I like to use contour when I'm putting my makeup on. I like to contour my face, adding a darker value product along my hairline, and that has a way of creating an illusion that you have a little bit of a smaller forehead, and I just really wanted to accentuate that. Have you guys heard the one about the horse that walks into a bar? Bartender says, "Why the long face?" So I grabbed a brush, and on a new pixel layer, I painted a sampled color, and that blend mode is multiply. No shock, I'm going to reduce the opacity of that, and actually I decide to blur it at full opacity so you can see better what I'm doing, and then reduce the opacity and you can see that's so subtle. Makes a big difference to me, but you wouldn't look at this image and say, I have a suspicious feeling that she's been accentuating her contour product. It's usually the most subtle changes that do it for me, and it's just a little bit of magic. When I'm playing with curves, I like to keep my eye on the histogram and just finessing it, getting it just exactly how I want it, keeping the histogram in mind, and then just also using my eye to find the perfect levels, the perfect curves. You're almost to the end of this video. I've got 2 more extended services to show you. This next step is for when you want to add a little vibrance to the hair. I I started recording my screen after I had already selected the hair and I was being lazy. So basically I just very quickly selected the hair with my lasso / freehand selection tool, and I wasn't very meticulous about it because this is just for me. So I went up and did a new adjustment layer, vibrance adjustment, and sometimes the vibrance adjustment is so subtle that you really can't see it, so I duplicated that layer a couple of times just so you can really see what we're doing here. As usual with many of my adjustment layers, I felt like doing a Gaussian blur, and you can see that that takes it from being a very sharp, neat edge to fading it in and making it all look a whole lot more natural. At this point in the process, because this is me, because this is not for a client, because this is just silly, I decided to just neaten everything up by merging all my edit layers together. I don't recommend this. The whole purpose of the adjustment layers is really to have them be editable after the fact, to have them be non-destructive, and when you flatten them all together like a pancake, you throw all that out the window and just defeat the purpose. I just felt like making my file size smaller and making it easier to just see the edit layers when I turn them on and off with one little click. And now moving on to the lips, this is the last extended surface that I want to show you, and I just really wanted to neaten up the edges of the lips in a subtle way. I grab a color that I like in a really light value and use that to accentuate the highlight on the upper edge of the top lip. I also grab a darker value color and use it to accentuate the edge, smooth the edge of the lips themselves. And I scale it all back. I am such a free spirit, and sometimes it's hard for me to be regimented. I am more structured and organized when I'm retouching for other people, but when I'm just doing a shot like this for myself, I oftentimes work out of order. And toward the end, especially, I like to go off the leash. Just do whatever calls to me, so a little edit here, a little edit there. So I'm just going to do that real quick and I'll be right back. Here we are at the end, my friends, before and after, before and after. You can really create something quite special with just very, very subtle changes, and that really floats my boat. Sending love and gratitude to you all in every direction, and until next time, signing off from Ozzy Headshots.